It's a nice, sunny, beautiful day outside, perfect for us to talk about our favorite Degrassi episodes of all time. And welcome to another edition of Degrassi Corner, and today we're going to be talking about our favorite episodes of all time, but there is a twist. Someone on Twitter actually asked me a specific question that they want the answer to. They asked, could you do a list of your favorite Degrassi episodes from every season? Just one episode from each season. Now, before I get into this list, let me clarify that favorite episode doesn't always mean the best episode. There are tons of episodes. There are hundreds of episodes in these 17 seasons that we're going to cover in this video. And there's a lot of really good episodes, but they're not necessarily my favorite. Basically, I'm taking this question as, if I had to sit down and watch one episode from every season right now, these are the episodes that I would easily choose. So without further ado, let's get into my favorite Degrassi episodes of all time from every season. All right, kicking things off with Degrassi The Next Generation Season 1, Friday Night. Not only do we have the beginning of Sean and Emma with their first date, we also have this really funny B-plot involving Jimmy, Spinner, Miss Kwan, and the legend who enjoys chicken wings. Season 2, Weird Science, and all I have to say about this, Spinner's Boner. Season 3, and still to this day, my favorite Degrassi episode of all time, we have Rock and Roll High School. It's just a really fun Battle of the Bands episode, some great music from both bands, and there's a really good message behind the storyline as well. Season 4 of TNG is a no-brainer. Time Stands Still. If you've watched this episode, you know why it's great, and if you haven't seen it, go watch it and you'll understand why it's great. Season 5, another fantastic musical episode. We have Weddings, Parties, Anything. Funny feud between Ellie and Manny in this episode. Great music. And once again, you know, Degrassi does a really fantastic job of creating great music on the show with these characters. The only thing that's kind of frustrating is that over the years, they tend not to release any of this music. Like even in Degrassi Next Class, Maya killed it with all of her songs. Well, why can't we buy them? Like Degrassi, there are people willing to pay you money to get good quality versions of these Degrassi character songs. Now on to Season 6 of Degrassi The Next Generation, and my favorite episode from this one is Eyes Without a Face, and this is obviously a remake of the very first episode of Degrassi The Next Generation, Mother and Child Reunion. And just looking back at like this episode and Mother and Child Reunion, Degrassi's always been ahead of the curve when it comes to technology on the show. Season 7, Death or Glory. Now, this season was one where it was a very dark and gritty season. Not just the storytelling, but also the look of the season was a little darker as well. The lights were a little different. They were a little harsher on the characters. And I think the whole dark, gritty vibe worked very well in an episode like Death or Glory, where we saw Spinner going through all of this emotional turmoil when he finds out that he has cancer. Season 8, and again, one of my favorite Degrassi episodes of all time, Heart of Glass. This is just a very wonderful storyline about two young people who are navigating through the very complicated world of sex without dealing with major consequences. And when I'm talking about major consequences, I'm talking about things like pregnancy or STD. On to Season 9, another very underrated episode of Degrassi, Innocent When You Dream. Yes, you're not telling me anything new when you tell me that Claire's storyline in this episode is ridiculous. I know that it's ridiculous, and that's why I love it, because it's just so silly, and I just can't stop laughing every time I watch this episode and I watch her biting Wesley on the neck, and then this weird thing at the end where she just decides out of nowhere she can't control herself, man. She's just gotta kiss Declan on the neck out of nowhere. And her reaction, she is just so horrified. It is so funny. Now moving on from TNG to Degrassi, Season 10. My favorite episode from this season is Chasing Pavements. Not only do we receive this really beautiful storyline involving Fiona, but we also get this really good B-plot as well involving Anya and Owen, and what happens when you have to deal with a fuckboy who refuses to take no for an answer. Season 11 is a no-brainer. Extraordinary Machine, a very emotional episode. Not only do we see the emotional goodbye that Jenna and KC have when they give up their son Tyson for adoption, but Eli also delivers a very powerful monologue. Season 12, Bittersweet Symphony, another very powerful and emotional episode, and Demetrius, he absolutely killed it in part 2, and the fact he really didn't receive any recognition for that is just one of the great travesties in Degrassi history. Season 13, I know a lot of people hated Season 13, but I think it is the most underrated season of all time. And my favorite episode from Season 13 is Believe. We get not one, but two really fantastic performances from two very talented actresses in Anna Goya and Sarah Fisher. Season 14, the award-winning episode Give Me One Reason. And the car scene is one of Eclair's finest moments in the history of their existence on the show. Regardless of what you think about Eclair, this car scene in this episode is one of the most emotionally powerful moments in Degrassi. Now moving on to Degrassi Next Class, Season 1, #NoFilter, and it's called NoFilter for a reason because Miles delivers a very moving monologue, keeps it completely real, and then Grace keeps it completely real as she reveals that basically she knows that she's going to die and that when it comes down to it, people always leave her. Season 2, #Rise and Grind. Now, the trial storyline in this episode for me is very similar to Heart of Glass, where you have these, once again, teenagers who are having these very frank discussions about sex. And in this episode, there's also a really, really, really good secondary plot involving Maya and VJ. And I'm not really sure if Degrassi fans know how relevant this storyline is to fandom, to the Degrassi fandom, but it's really good. And finally, Degrassi Next Class Season 3, #HugeIfTrue. And this is a very unique episode because this is the only episode in the history of Degrassi as a franchise where the entire episode takes place at someone's house. We also get 3 really unique storylines about sex. And then also in this episode, we have this whole Hunter storyline about him and Yael and their relationship and how it's affecting their friendship group. The whole Hunter, Yael, gamer, vlogger group storyline, it is one of the best storylines of Degrassi Next Class Season 3. And there you have it. That's going to do it for this video. You don't have to list a favorite episode from every season. I just want to know what your favorite Degrassi episodes are of all time from any generation. Just leave those in the comment section below. And of course, any thoughts or opinions about my list, leave those down there as well.